In today's episode, a supervisor that wasn't in my department tried to steal my tips. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. A supervisor that wasn't in my department tried to steal my tips. This happened many years ago. I just thought that you might enjoy the story. Brace yourself, this is a long one. I was working in European hotels for quite a while, and in this particular 5-star hotel I was working as concierge. I loved the job as I felt that my local contacts and knowledge could enhance our guests' stay immeasurably. During the busy summer season I worked all hours, even giving out my personal number to selected groups, so that they could call me at any time if they needed any advice while in the town. I spent free time getting to know local business owners and arranging deals for our guests to get special rates if I were to book on their behalf. You know, just the normal concierge stuff, really. I had a number of groups that I would focus my attention on at one time. I would try to help everyone, but I did pick a few of the larger groups and really go out of my way for them especially. The reason I did this was to get tips. I was being paid a servant's wage and wanted to supplement it. Quite soon into the busy period, early June IIRC, a staff meeting was called. The hotel manager, Michelle, assistant manager, Marcus, head chef, Luca, F&B/restaurant manager, Tiffany, and housekeeping supervisor, Johanna, stood at the front of the restaurant facing the 70 or so staff members present. In my role, I reported to Marcus. He was the head of guest services. I had almost never spoken directly with Michelle and had very little to do with Johanna. The hotel manager started the meeting. Me and Johanna feel, well, all of us managers, we feel it is unfair that, if we don't all share our tips, some people are left out and they deserve a cut. Johanna swiftly stepped forward and interrupted Michelle, speaking loudly and sternly to room. This hotel is a machine. It's not one person that makes a guest tip. It's every person here. What if someone will tip Celia? She's a waitress. She can smile and serve them dinner. But what if their food was cold? What if the tablecloth is dirty? Would they tip then? No. So, it isn't Celia that deserves the tips at all. No, it is the chefs that make the food and us in housekeeping that clean the linen. What if Afrocrow is handed €100 and puts it in his pocket? What do you think about that? That he keeps our money for himself. Is that fair to everyone else? He only arranged for them to go on a tour or a restaurant in town. Any old trained chimp can do that. But what about the bed they slept on? What if the room wasn't cleaned each day? Would they tip him? No, they would complain. She paused for a moment, no doubt to witness the echo of her own voice before she continued her spiel. You know who keeps the lights on. You know who pays the bills, your wages, pays suppliers and organizes reservations? Us. We keep the lights on and make sure this hotel stays open. Without us, none of you have a job. So, start acting like it. I'm so sick of people who don't deserve it getting all of the appreciation, while the people in here that actually work the hardest go without. If you are tipped by a guest, then that money isn't yours. It belongs to all of us. You are stealing from all of us. Any money you have received from tips, past, present and future, must be given to us so we can distribute it fairly to all staff. Anyone who is seen keeping tips will be fired. No warning. You will be out. Do I make myself clear? There was a murmur of agreement and the management left the room. Some people turned to each other and asked who the hell was she, as chefs and hotel maintenance rarely came into contact with housekeeping. A friend asked if I had really got €100 tip. I hadn't. I had been given €20 by a guest the previous day to pay me back when I fronted them for a taxi fare after they left their wallet in their room. Of course, I did receive tips. I would say around €100 to €150 per week spread over roughly 380 rooms, but never anything as large as €100 from one guest alone. Tipping culture just wasn't prevalent in Europe at that time. I'm not sure if it has changed now. A few weeks after the meeting, a family of upper-class generational wealthers came to stay. From conversations with them, it appeared that they didn't do anything. They owned a lot of assets, companies and property, but their day-to-day was at their leisure. I worked around the clock to keep up with their demands. Most were reasonable, some unreasonable, calling me in the middle of the night to arrange to have their sheets changed as they had sweat too much in their sleep. They made it clear that everything wasn't to their standards, but I did my best to put out all of their fires. At the end of their stay, they handed me a pastel green envelope with embossed leaf and spiraling branch patterns, containing 5 €50 notes. You have been the only pleasurable part of this miserable experience. Please contact us if you come to the US, we would love to have you work for us. I had no intention of working for them. 10 days had been more than enough. Nice as they were to me in conversation, I felt they treated me like a butler. After my shift ended, I went to the management office. The door was open. Michelle, Marcus and Johanna were inside, laughing at a joke I had not heard. "Excuse me," I said. Johanna's head snapped around and she glared at me, with an expression as though my presence angered her. "What?" she snapped. "Yes, Afrocrow, what can we do for you?" Marcus asked, talking over her. "I've just been given this and I thought that we were supposed to share tips so all staff get a share." I held out the envelope for Marcus to take. Before he could, Johanna snatched it from my hand. Her eyes widened as she looked inside. She looked at Michelle for a moment. A few seconds of silence passed before Johanna turned to me again. Quickly, her infuriated expression returned. "Are you still here? You can go now if there's nothing else. Go and do whatever it is you pretend to do." I looked at Marcus in disbelief. I was expecting him to chastise her for being so rude. Who is this woman? She isn't my supervisor. She holds no authority over me and my position in the hotel, I thought. I expected Marcus to stick up for me. We got on well, and I at least expected a thank you, or well done for earning such a large amount in tips in one go. Instead, I felt as though it was I that was inappropriately intruding in the office doorway, like I imagine it would feel to realize you were crashing a funeral. I looked at Johanna as she glared and back at Marcus, but no support came. A couple of weeks later, and none of the staff I spoke with had received any share of the tips I had given up. I had gone on to receive a further €400 in the interim, accumulated from the odd €10 here and €20 there. With the number of staff in the hotel, we should have been given back roughly €7 each from my haul alone. But I was not the only person who had passed tips upwards. Many others had also given what they had been gifted, to be distributed evenly amongst everyone. Tiffany and I went to the manager's office together whilst we were both off shift. She had collected a tidy sum of money from her staff in good faith that they would see some of it back. Tiffany said that one of the receptionists had also been given a few small amounts from guests to pass on to staff over the past few weeks, which she had also given to management. When Michel opened the manager's office door, he asked what we wanted. I replied, over the last month, we've calculated that the staff have given you at least €1,000 in tips. We wanted to know, where's our money? Tiffany blurted out. Look, I don't have time to deal with petty matters, I've a hotel to run. Johanna deals with tips. Ask her. Michelle replied. When can we expect it? Tiffany asked. Don't ask me. Talk to Johanna. Where is she? Tiffany replied. She's not working today. Can you call her? We need to sort this out. No, I can't call her. Sort it out on your own time, not mine. The door slammed shut in our faces. The next day Johanna made a point to be loud and seen by everyone while she went around and personally handed €3 to each staff member. I asked where the rest of it was. She told me that I was misremembering how much money I had contributed, and that other staff's claims of passing on tips were completely false. There was a lot less in the pot than you people seem to think there was. And if you lot want to bring forward any accusations of stealing, then you better have some solid proof, otherwise there will be a whole lot of people all looking for new jobs all at the same time. I'm not giving any more tips in that case. I'll keep what I'm given. Everything else everybody earns can be shared amongst the rest of you, but I'm keeping mine. No, you won't. That's stealing. You don't get to decide what happens with tips. I do. Sorry, but I don't know who decided you were in charge of tips, but Michelle, the guy who runs this hotel, decided. That's who. Look, I'd just be a lot more comfortable if I kept what I'm given, and if everyone else wants to pool theirs together, that's up to them. Johanna looked furious. She stormed off and yelled, "Well, if I catch you, then your head will be the first to roll." So, dear reader, if you have made it this far, this is where things got weird. Roughly a week later, a family that I had been working closely with were leaving. They had come on holiday after the grandfather had passed away following a long and emotional battle with cancer. He had left a modest amount of money, and they had tried to do something nice as a family. Although they had tried to make the best of it, perhaps it was a little too soon to be trying to cheer themselves up by going abroad. I wasn't expecting a tip. I didn't want one. I just wanted to make a painful period feel a little brighter. I helped the doorman load their bags into a taxi, and they bid me farewell. The manager's office overlooked the front of the property, where the cars drew up to collect guests. The elderly grandmother hugged me and handed me a note on A5 notepaper ripped from a spiral notepad. I put it in my inside suit jacket pocket and promised to read it as soon as they left. It was one of the most emotional goodbyes I have had with a group of guests. They got into the taxi. I waved and turned to see Johanna scowling at me through the manager's office window. As I stepped back inside the hotel, she flew out from the office and demanded that I hand over money. She held her hand out, her face red with anger. It was just a letter. There wasn't any money. Liar, she shouted, so loud that guests around the lobby all turned to see what was going on. I just saw you. I just saw them give it to you. That money isn't yours. It's for all of us. I looked around and saw that everyone, guests, the receptionists, and especially myself, were feeling very uncomfortable. I couldn't believe what was happening. "Give me the money," she yelled. "I told you, it was just a letter." I took the note paper out of my pocket, and she tried to snatch it from me. I didn't expect that she would do that and was holding too tight to let it slip. The letter ripped diagonally in two. She peered down and what she was holding, dropped it on the floor, and launched herself at me, gripping my shirt in her fist and clambering to reach inside my suit jacket pocket to check for money. "Take off your jacket. I'm going to search you to find where that money is. You've hidden it. Let me check your pockets. Now." I stepped back and pushed her away. One of the doormen ran over, held her and dragged her away to the manager's office. As he did so, she held onto my lapel for a second, tugging me forward before letting go and submitting to the doorman. She was furious. I was in shock. I picked up the other half of the letter off of the floor and tucked both pieces into my pocket. I looked around. The lobby was silent. I felt the heat from my cheeks as I blushed with embarrassment from the stares of several dozen people. "Are you okay?" one of the receptionists asked. "That was wild." "What the hell happened?" said another. "She thought I was keeping tips for myself." I replied. "Is that it? What the? That's no excuse to act like that. She's deranged." Now, I usually feel I am quite stoic at work, but in that moment, I felt a lot of emotions all at once, and none of them were calmness and even tempered. I smoothed out my suit and went to the staff toilet, feeling angry, embarrassed, lost, self-pity, and tearful all at once. I had been okay until the receptionist asked me how I was, then I suddenly wasn't. I washed my face with cold water and started to calm myself down. I wanted to confront and yell at her. I knew that wasn't the right way to approach it and thought to distract myself by reading the letter. I pulled out the two crinkled pieces of notepaper and held them together so I could read it. It was a heartfelt thank you from the family. The one line that stuck with me was that they wished I could have met the grandfather, as he would have apparently really liked me. I felt a wave of emotion, so sat down and focused on remaining calm and feeling better. After 5 minutes I went to see Marcus, who was in the kitchen, meeting with the Luca. I asked him for a moment of his time and told him about the incident. I said that I was owed an apology and wanted to see her fired for assault. He told me to leave it with him. When I chased him up about it the following day, he said that it was all just a storm in a teacup, I was overreacting, and not to worry as I wouldn't have to talk to her again. He said if it meant that much to me, I could keep the money. I said that it wasn't about the money that I hadn't even been given, it was the fact she had lost control and got physical. He replied that we were too busy and short-staffed to lose a key manager like her. I argued that she shouldn't get away with what she did. Look mate, you're not actually going to push me on this, are you? You're not going to try and make a big thing of it? 'Cause you know, it's not going to end well for you if you do. What do you mean by that? I asked. Come on mate, don't act coy. You've been in this game long enough. You know. I had no clue. Johanna was cozy with Michelle and Marcus, but I didn't believe that either were cheating on their spouses with her. Why would they try to downplay what should be quite a simple matter of firing a loose cannon? 14 years on and I still don't really know why she held dominance in the power dynamic. I was the victim and apparently also the antagonist. In the years since, I have worked in several high-pressure management positions myself. I know that it can be extremely frustrating when you try to enact rules and people go against you. But that's no reason to lose control and lay hands on a person in anger. There really is no reason to do that at all. I worked until the end of August when I left for another job in another part of Europe. I never spoke to Johanna again after the incident. When I saw her, she would scowl at me, but other than that I had very little interaction with her. Behind my back she would spread rumors about me, and the atmosphere never felt the same again. I kept all of my tips from then on. Not that they amounted to a small fortune, or were anything other than a little bit of pocket money. I didn't keep in touch with anyone from that hotel either, and never found out what happened to any of them. I'm sorry that I can't wrap this rather anticlimactic ending up in a bow, and say that everything turned out fine. I left a job I enjoyed because a person that felt they needed to be tipped for changing bedsheets had assaulted me. Not much more to it than that.